supposed to say hello.
Hello. Hi, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Do I have to say hello?
I was trying to let you say hello this
just
time
wait for
because
me?
the last two I said hello
I don't
first.
give a shit. I'm
Neither,
Paige.
but I like when you go first. I'm Cyndi,
I'm Jay.
and this is
It's
Mom's
Mom's
Word,
Word.
where Mom knows best.
Or at least.
She's trying her best.
Oh, yeah.
Because the conversations before we record are always wild.
We're talking about buttholes.
Yeah, we were.
Really?
And it's really hot in this room, and
Yeah.
and then we just had some brisket
Tacos.
and so we're a little bit like, we got the itis.
Yeah, I'm ready to take a nap. It's warm in here. My belly's full.
I can't sleep in the heat, so
Absolutely not. I would not sleep in here.
There's
it
no
would
way.
put me to sleep, but I
I'd
wouldn't
have to
stay
get
asleep.
I'd have to get buck naked to sleep in this room right here.
Can you sleep naked?
This is hot. Yes.
No.
You can't sleep
That was a
naked.
song.
Sleep naked when my thighs touch together. If they
What?
start to sweating,
I don't sweat when I sleep.
can't do it.
I do. If
do.
it's hot, I do.
I do.
What's that song?
If
Ooh,
I wear satin pajamas.
Bucky
no.
Naked. Do you remember that song?
Ooh, she's bucky naked. don't disrespect me.
Yeah. I don't know what the name of that song
I have
is.
no idea.
No, I can sleep naked.
Nope.
No.
I
At
don't.
least
I
I've
do
got
not
panties
often
on.
because
I
I
can
have
go without
kids.
If you
top.
shart.
You shart in your sleep.
One time I was sick and I sharted, so yeah.
He's like,
I'll be honest, I was very sick. I thought it was a fart and I
he said that
sharted.
like once I was actually.
Yeah.
I do not sleep naked though, like ever. But I could if
I
I
love
wanted.
pajamas.
But
too,
in
man.
case of an emergency
Yeah.
and you have to run out of your house naked, no fucking.
No, I just have kids and I just don't. But like, if we go to like a hotel and my kids are not there, absolutely, I
I have
can.
to have panties on at least.
What?
I can sleep
No, I
topless,
will.
but I will not sleep without panties.
I have too many body issues to be on
At
the fucking
home-
news with no clothes on.
At home, I'm in jammies because like if the babies need me in the middle of the night, I'm not walking in there like with one of these
Then
things.
zoom into that camera when she did that.
Paige got to know. Yeah. When they're free,
And I'm
when
not gonna
they're
be swinging
free
it.
hanging,
Yeah.
I'll be in the crib like whoop whoop. No, I need clothes on.
So true. Whenever you
Yes.
bend over and they're like,
Yes, it's not. I'm not lying. Y'all know. Y'all know.
you know, don't act like you don't know.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
You guys, we're talking about something that is very well known today to Jay and Cyndi.
Yes.
Not so much so I will be asking the questions and trying to pick
Yes.
for more details respectfully.
Yeah, we haven't talked about foster care adoption in a while, and a lot of people have wanted some answers and questions, and so that's what we're going to do today. We took a Q&A, and Paige is going to ask us some questions. I don't know. I got to pull
think
it
it's
up.
on
I guess.
Jay's phone.
It's very interesting. So we all, Cyndi and I both did questions on Instagram. It's very interesting, especially for me. I don't think you get it as much. Well, then I go live and you don't. But people want to know. They would assume, right, that you and your husband had children. But me, they don't really assume that. So they either say IVF, fostering, adoption. What's your situation? We get that question. So we are no longer licensed foster parents, right? Before we moved here to Dallas in Lubbock, the agency that we were going through ended up closing. And so we could have switched, but we were already planning to move. And so we decided not to, because either way, we would have had to have been licensed here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And so we are not licensed foster parents. All 5 of my children are adopted, and we did foster them before adopting them. Originally, when my children came to us, it was supposed to be foster care. The goal of foster care is reunification, and so we were just fostering to help out. But unfortunately, at times when you are fostering, there are some children who do not get reunified with their parents,
Or
and
even
so
family.
yeah, and so long-term care adoption is needed, and so then yes, that can happen through fostering. But realistically, when you go in as a foster parent, you're going in there to provide a temporary home for children that need that temporary support, right? And so all of our children are adopted through foster care, but people will ask me like, oh, can you tell me about private adoption? I can't. I didn't go through a private adoption agency. I didn't go those routes that other people have, and so I can't really tell you about that. I can talk to you about fostering and my experience. We fostered for 4 years. In those 4 years, we had 21 children. Obviously, we still have 5, so 5 we adopted, and the other 16 either were reunified with family or were adopted to other families. So yes.
So I have 3 children. So Bear, I have one biological son, Bear. Fox is adopted, and Itty Bitty is still experiencing foster care. My home is not open currently. We have just, I guess, closed at 3. We capped our house at 3 for now because I had 2 babies back to back. When we got Itty Bitty, Fox was 9 months old. We went through an adoption with Fox, and so we just decided to chill for a little while. The children that had left my home before that really affected my mental health, my heart, and so I needed to take a break. I was feeling very emotional. So now Itty Bitty has been in our care for 15 months, and yeah, we're still licensed and still foster parents. Just
You're not taking placements, though.
I am not.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
No.
When you know your cup is full.
Yeah.
You have to know when your plate is full and it's not overflowing, right? Because you don't want to put so much on your plate that things are just falling apart because you want to keep adding and adding and adding. Trust me, if I was like rich, I would have my own group home on like a nice piece of land with like a lake. Would love to do that and be able to give them a temporary home while they were being reunified. I would love to do that. I would love to take more children, but unfortunately, financially, mentally, it's just a lot. And you talked about, as foster parents, you can get emotionally exhausted because there is an emotional part from it saying goodbye. I understand that that's the goal. That's what we're signing up for as foster parents. And it's amazing that they're reunified, right?
Yes.
It's amazing that they are going back, but it doesn't take away the feelings that we've had them for 12 months, 13 months, sometimes longer, and you get attached. And the fact of the matter is, most of the time when the children leave our home, we're never going to see them again.
Yeah.
We're never going to talk to them again. And so you always live with that doubt. I have all their pictures, their birthdays on my calendars. And every time something comes up, I'm like, I hope that they're in a safe environment, that they're loved.
That was
and
my
so
thought.
that part right there is very heartbreaking. And I will tell you that when in February, it'll be 2 years, my dad passed away. And up until that point, we had been fostering, but I had just go. Children leave on Monday. On Tuesday, we had another placement. We had 6 children for a while. And we just kept going and going and going. And when my dad passed away, I just felt like everything just hit me at once. The grief of all the children leaving us.
Yes.
My dad passing, and then my health was not the best. I was like heavier. And so I was like, I need to focus on myself because I'm not able to do this anymore. And so it can be very mentally exhausting.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Being a foster parent.
Because
But that's what you sign up for.
Yeah, I went child after child after child without taking a break. And a lot of the children I've cared for are from the hospital. And so I never took a break for my own mental health. And then the children that I cared for 18 months, their case was very heavy. I was
just
all
thinking
over
that
the
same
place.
thing.
It was very heavy. And so I decided that I needed a break. And then we had Fox for a while, just him. And then I decided, okay, I think I'm ready to open up. And that's when we got Itty Bitty. And I thought, well, that's all I can do right now. And my children they
close
need
in
me. Yeah, they're very close in age. And my oldest needs a lot more of my attention. We do homeschool. And so my cup is rather full, and I feel content with where I'm at right now. Right. We help other ways, though. Like we do a lot of stuff in the community, and we are going to continue to do so, even when I do close my home one day. So.
Yeah, I will say that I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna try to.
I have a train of thought here because I was thinking as y'all were like the leaving part is so difficult and that can be so heavy. I think also part of it is that y'all hear all of the trauma that child is coming with, and so there's also that fear of sending them back into that environment. Will they be safe? Will they be okay? Knowing what they've gone through, helping them get out of these traumas, like all of those things. I know specifically because of some of your cases, like. That stuff never leaves you.
No.
You're the first one to hear it.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult, especially whenever you care so much about this tiny little child and you want to protect them.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to trust that their parents or the family that has accepted them for reunification will protect them when ultimately they didn't to begin with.
It's very scary to hear why they got removed and then be like, they're going to go back. And you have to trust that that's okay.
I think in the same breath, though, there are people who, I know that you've had a case before where their child is taken into foster care, for a time period, but then they really get their life back together and
That's amazing when
they
we see
really
that.
can.
Yeah, a lot of my cases have gone that way.
Yeah.
That was their lowest point of their life and their children got removed for a reason that didn't even have to do with the kid. It was with their own adult life.
There's so many reasons why a child
There's
can be
so
removed.
many. And it's a reality check sometimes.
There's a lot of things that can lead to children
Oh, so many things.
placed into care. Most people think it's drugs, alcohol, and neglect. There's so many things that could cause somebody, like if they're financially struggling and they have a huge financial hit to them, and then now they no longer have food or water or something. Children can be removed for stuff like that.
Or the parent struggles with mental health.
It could be that they're not like where it's abuse or anything. It could be just something as simple as now they don't have the necessities that they need, and so children can be removed for all sorts of reasons. We do get the information. I will say that the one thing that, looking back when I first started fostering, I felt that CPS could do a better job between building the relationship between the biological parents and the foster parents, because we were taught to be scared of these people. Like literally, oh, you don't want to talk to them. They can be very upset. They can try to fight you. So you're going to come in through the front door and they're going to come in through the back door. And I was like, actually, I prefer the other way. No, I'm just kidding. But and so it was very like that. We really didn't have a relationship with any of the families until realistically only like 2 or 3, and everything else was very surface level. When we did see each other, it was very like a wall. Like you had to be careful for them not to follow you on the way home. It was just very that.
Mine was very opposite of that, though.
It's interesting because so I do think that it should be more of a try to build a relationship with the biological family, because they are going to miss out on a lot of milestones when the kids are with you. And so
they do in the beginning. They tell you like really protect yourself. Don't let them follow you home, because they have to be deemed as safe, which is wild. But I understand it, because in some cases, foster parents have been followed home. Kids have been taken from their home. Like their bio family would show up and take the kids. So it can be very scary. But once they're deemed safe, I hate that they say that, but I always opened the door. I always gave my phone number and would send pictures every week. And that's if your caseworker allows it. All this goes through your caseworker. But many of my cases, I was like almost friends with that mom. Like we were co-parenting together.
Amazing.
In a lot of ways, they needed a friend.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of them were lost and didn't have like a mom that they could look up to. And I wanted to make sure they knew all the decisions were their decisions. And so that is something that like I was afraid to do in the beginning. When the first mom was like, can I talk to her? Can I get pictures? I was like, yeah. Although I'm scared, I'm going to have like really thick boundaries. I did. And every day I took pictures and sent them. And it is a scary thing to do. And a lot of first time foster parents were like, I don't know how you can do that. I'm just like, you got to like put your own pride to the side and think about what's best for this child. This child needs to see their mom who they love, their dad who they love every day. Don't make them a scary person.
A child-centered disease. Lord Jesus, decision, not disease. Excuse me.
A child-centered decision. Yes, I agree.
All right. Why did you want to foster?
I've always, literally as a child, I even said I was going to adopt. And I think it's because my parents would always bring in people into our home. Like cousins would stay with us, young adults would stay with us who needed help. My dad would always bring them into our home. And I always thought that was really great. They could just live with us for a while till they were ready. And then, when I went to work for the first time and I worked in a daycare, I seen babies and I would ask them like, why does caseworkers pick them up? And they were foster children. And I connected to a lot of these kids and their parents, their foster parents. And I was young, like 19, 20. And I thought it was a beautiful thing that they got to take care of these babies. And I always wanted to take care of babies. I was like, I wanted to be a mom. And so I always knew that I wanted to foster and help children whose parents couldn't be there for them. And then it just worked out that I met Chris and he was like, oh, I also want to foster. I knew people in the church he was in who fostered. And that was it. Basically, we wanted to take care of babies. And at that point I was like, oh, I'm going to adopt all these babies when I was so young, And then entering the foster care system, we weren't going in for adoption. We were just going in because we had the extra room in our home. We were financially stable. And at that time I thought, okay, I'm still going to get pregnant. I didn't know I was that infertile then. I still went through fertility with Bear, but I thought like, oh, I'm going to have more kids while I'm taking care of these kids and they're going to go home to their parents. And some of them did. And some of them, one of them did not, but, that's why it just worked out for us. At a young age, I knew.
Yeah. So one of my bosses at Progressive, she fostered. And I had some friends that fostered, and it's just always wanted something to do to help out.
Yeah.
Right? I feel my mom's always said, if you're blessed, you should help bless others. Right? And I've always wanted children. I've always loved children. So I was like, ooh, we should foster. And then Kyler and I both agreed, and we dragged our feet for a little bit, honestly, to get licensed. And then one day I was like, get the laptop, let's do this. And we banged out all the paperwork, did all the training. And then we were licensed in like less than 6 months. And then literally we got our license, and 2 weeks later, I mean less than 2 weeks, we had 2 kids, and then 2 weeks later we had 4 children, right? And so we just always wanted to help, and Kyla was the exact same. He wanted to help out as well. We honestly just, I knew that I wanted to adopt, or that we wanted to do, what is it called?
Surrogate?
A surrogate, yes, right? I was like, we'll find a lesbian couple that will want my leche. I'll get their eggs, and we'll mix it together, and we'll be
kids.
besties. Yeah, like literally, that's literally what I thought. But I was like, well, let's foster and kind of figure it out, see how we are as dads, and we just wanted to help, and we jumped into it. You know, our second placement was actually Amor and Ari. And if you would have asked me then 4 years ago if we would have adopted them, I would have said no. It didn't look, the case was supposed to go to reunification. It did not look like it was going to be adoption, but it unfortunately went that way. And so we ended up adopting them, right? But it wasn't the goal in the beginning, you know?
Yeah. I think we got licensed around the same time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Why? When did you get licensed?
During COVID, July.
Oh, no. Then I'm before you.
Oh,
I had April of 2019.
so a couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. What is the process into becoming a foster parent?
So we're in Texas, so we had the same exact process. I'm pretty sure. But like step one is to just Google foster care agencies in your area.
Yeah, that was a question for me. We literally, guys, went on Bing and said foster agencies.
Yes.
We called everybody. Whoever called us back is who we went with.
Yeah.
Literally.
They have informational nights.
Yes.
And I suggest you go because you'll see. And then literally once you go, they'll give you a guideline. Like ours literally gave us a paper for everything you needed to complete.
Yep.
And then after that, it is a lot of work, but I wouldn't say it's hard work.
No, it's just a lot of information they need. Personal information, who lives in your home, the size of your home, background checks.
And then training.
Trainings,
A lot of
lots and
hours.
lots of trainings that you and your significant other, CPR.
Yes.
Safety plans to make sure everything's safe. One of the questions that I got is, do you have to be wealthy in order to foster or adopt, or do they have to have their own rooms? So the one thing is like they'll go and check your home, right, to make sure it's safe and that you have all the safety measures.
Yeah.
And so like say for example your house is 2,000 square feet, they'll look at the size of the rooms, and depending on the size of the room they'll say, oh, you could fit 2 children in here. Now there is parameters based off of the age, the sex, all that good stuff once they get older, but realistically they say if you had 2 kids of the same age, same sex, it would be 2 kids here, 3 kids here, or depending on your size.
Yes.
You might just have one. So that's the major factor. They do ask you for questions financially if you are able to pay your own bills and you're financially stable to pay your bills. So as long as you can pay your bills, do you have to be wealthy? No. Do you have to be rich? No.
Yeah, you just have to be financially stable, afford all your bills, and not be wanting this money for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
How do foster homes get inspected? I've seen some teens on TikTok share theirs secretly.
I'll be honest with you, I've seen some of these videos too, and I'm always blown away at what's getting past certain people, because every single month I'm an active foster home. My agency comes to my home and walks my whole house. I'm talking, they walk the backyard, the front yard. They walk everything. They make sure every month my stuff's locked up and it's clean.
water.
Yeah, hot water. And my agency, and my caseworker comes every single month. So I don't know how some of these things, because I've seen that some children are living in a not a great environment, and that is not happening here with my agency. Personally, they're on top of things.
Right. I think that, so realistically, you have your caseworker from the agency come, and CPS comes
And CASA.
every month.
And my
We
CASA.
didn't have a CASA, but
My CASA comes
CASA is
every
a
month.
court-appointed, what is
Something
the
or
acronym?
another.
Court-appointed Advocate. What's the S?
I know you lost
Social? No.
social advocate.
Probably
Maybe.
social.
But it's
social
basically
workers.
volunteers
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of gauge a bridge between the foster agency or CPS and the judge with the child.
Yes.
Realistically, it's just another person that checks in on the kids. So realistically, that's a visit every month. Now, our agency does unannounced visits as well, where it's like supposed to catch you off guard to make sure that everything is still good. And we had that.
Yep.
Right. So they would just show up, we're like, show up, that's fine. Right. And they literally would go through every room, check your hot water.
Yep.
If the children are of a certain age, they will talk to them individually. Like, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's everything going? Right. And literally check everything on the list.
Yeah. And children of an age where they have a phone, they have the caseworker on speed dial. They're allowed to call them at any time if they feel uncomfortable in your home. I don't know if that's a Texas thing, but they are able to. So,
It is a court-appointed special advocate.
yes, there we go.
Special.
And I love my CASA worker.
Yes. And these are people that volunteer to do this.
I would love to do
They don't
this
get
one day.
paid. Yes, I think that's amazing. So I will say, let me just say that in everything that there is in life, there is good and bad. Is there bad foster parents? Absolutely. Is there good foster parents? Absolutely. Is there good CASA workers? Absolutely. Court, lawyers, CPS workers, and everything. I think that sometimes what happens is things fall through the cracks because the person is just not thorough. For example, the CPS caseworker or the caseworker for the agency, they are not thorough enough, and so they are failing the children.
Yes.
Right? And so it is very unfortunate. I would say that whoever is inspecting the home, no matter what the relationship is with the foster parent or whatever, they should still go through every single thing just to double check, because sometimes they don't go through the 100% checklist, and they should, because there are homes that are potentially dangerous that can happen. I will tell you that we got children from a home that unfortunately that home ended up getting closed out because of serious violations. And the reason this is horrible. This is not funny, like in a good way. The reason why they were closed down is because that caseworker failed to do the job. And those kids came to my home, and the caseworker had never seen them walk, she said, oh, they can't walk, they can't eat, they can't do this. I'm like, she just ran by us drinking some water. What are you talking about? And so I will always stand up for the kids. And so I remember I was like dragging that caseworker. I was like, I don't understand how the caseworker did X, Y, Z. How do you not know this? How do you not know this? And she was like, I've had these kids for a year. And I was like,
Someone will fail them along the way.
it was horrible because I basically told her she didn't know how to do her job, but somebody needed to tell her and report her, which I did, because she was failing to do her job. She's like, every time I went to go see the kids, they were sitting down in a high chair, so I never saw them walk.
Red flag.
It's like, well, you should have got them up. You should have asked questions. You should have said, oh, let me see them, or in a different environment. Why is it that they were always in pajamas, always sitting in the high chair? You were failing these children, and that's what happened, right? And so there's good and bad in everything, and so sometimes, yes, that can happen because people are dropping the ball, and it's very unfortunate for those children because
It does happen. There's a lot of kids in care. Yeah.
there's a lot of children that have experienced foster care. It's traumatic no matter what to everybody involved, but there's some children that had a better experience than others because of that.
Yes.
Do you agree with all the rules that are set for foster parents?
I feel the rules have to be there because of certain things people have done. So they're there for a reason.
That's so true. This is random as shit, but we had a rule at our high school that you weren't allowed to shit on the bathroom floor because a guy did it.
Yeah.
There's always a rule because somebody
Somebody
did
did
something
it.
stupid.
So like the one rule that I can think of at the top of my brain right now that I did not agree with, and I was very vocal about this, is that when you get a newborn baby, that we're not allowed to swaddle them no more here in the state of Texas. They have to be free-armed. Now,
They don't like that.
one, newborn babies love to be swaddled. A lot of newborn babies are coming addicted to drugs. So they're
Yes.
withdrawing. And so sometimes that is the only support that they're getting because their arms frail and things like that. So that was heartbreaking to me because I had two newborns after that, Fox and Itty Bitty, who I was not allowed to Fox and Itty
swallow
Bitty, who I was not allowed to swaddle, and I had to get a doctor's note for because I was not going to stand for that. Like they need to be comforted. We're not allowed to sleep with them, which I agree. I agree with. These babies.
dangerous.
You don't want to co-sleep, but
They need it.
they need it.
They need comfort.
They need comfort. Imagine a newborn baby being stripped from their mom is already traumatic, right? I don't smell like her. I don't sound like her. My heart don't sound like her. And now I can't swaddle you. Like, you know,
Swaddle, not swallow.
swaddle. I can't, like, it's just, that was one of the rules that I was like, I get it, man. Somebody probably over swaddled a baby, but like, then do some training on how to swaddle, because these are children who could be drug addicted and also having a traumatic experience. 2 days old getting stripped from your mom, that's traumatic. Yeah. So that is the one rule I can think of.
We in my agency, there was a certain brand of swaddles that we were able to use.
Yeah, well, we were allowed to. They just had to be, their hands were allowed to be.
No, we had one where they were able.
Yeah,
to
we were
do
not
like
allowed to do that.
But it was only a certain brand that we were able to do, and so we did get those. So we were able to swaddle some of the.
I mean, I got doctor's notes because
The one thing that I'll say about
Good to know you can do
Cyndi,
that.
Yeah.
and I think like parents of children that have like twins or triplets or whatever, it's very hard to have children so close in age, and you have to do that. Like obviously Kingston and Talia are separated by 3 months, and so it was like we had twins, and it's a lot, because when you're putting one down, one's waking up.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
it is a lot when the children are very close. And then we also had a bunch of babies. I know that's pretty much all you've had, and it's a whole different ballgame, because again, they don't. Some people think that babies that were taken from the hospital really don't have trauma or really aren't impacted, and that's just not true. You can read about it. You can ask your professionals, but they will experience trauma, whether that's now or in their future, and they are not accustomed to our smell, to our sound, to all of that, and so it is very, very traumatic. And some children, unfortunately, are detoxing from drugs as well, or other things, and so maybe even in the NICU, and so it is very hard.
It's very sad. What do you feel like CPS workers could do to make that experience less traumatic for everyone involved?
I feel for CPS. Okay, y'all, they have a hard job, and taking someone's child is not easy.
No.
That's hard, right? But I guess the only thing which we've just talked about is helping to bridge a relationship between the foster family and the bio family. I feel like that's important, not losing that. Because CPS has a hard job. You know, they have caseloads that are really full, and the good ones out there are really working hard. But yeah, I feel like that's important.
Yeah, I would say just bridging the relationship between all three, where it's more of a partnership, right? I think would be best for everybody involved and for what's best for the child. I do think that, I mean, out of all the caseworkers we had, they were all amazing except for 2. The others were amazing and dedicated, and they went in to do this work because they really wanted to help out. And it's honestly, they don't get paid a lot. They really don't get paid a lot. They have a lot of cases, and by cases they mean children in homes that they have to go and do. There's a lot of things that they have to do, and so they are.
I can't imagine like
underpaid,
knocking
and
on a door and being
it
like,
is a very
"I'm
hard
from CPS,
Taking
and
someone's kid,
I need to have
it's
your
a
child."
it's a very hard job, but I do think that maybe bridging the connection between all of us together to work together, because the end goal is a reunification.
That's right.
Yeah. How do you feel like you avoid burnout?
I'm bad. For a while, I was burned out because I would just say yes because I wanted to help everybody, and I was like,
Probably hard to say no
It is very hard
when you
to
know
say
that
no.
there's a child, an innocent child in
Our
need.
agency would call us the gay couple that doesn't say no.
yeah. So like
You said yes to
I got really burned out because I just wanted to keep helping, and I guess the way my body just told me I needed a break like that. Unfortunately, I am not the poster child for coping with burnout because I was burnt out, like emotionally drained, but still wanted to help. That Chris was like, we got to take a break. Like we have to. Like we already have these children in our home who we want to give our full selves to. I wasn't prioritizing myself. I wasn't prioritizing my health. I wasn't prioritizing. So now I take what I know I can handle and take time for myself.
Yeah, I think it's super important to know, again, when your cup is full so you don't take on too much. Sometimes you want to help everybody, but then if you put more on your plate, then that means something is pushed to the back burner, and you have to realize that some of the stuff that's pushed to the back burner might be super important that you can't push to the back burner, and so that's when you know you're taking on too much. And so it's very important to feel the emotions that you're feeling because it can be very traumatic situation for all involved, more for the child,
Yes.
right? Because we do hear everything that happens, what caused the removal. We do
see their
all
parents
of that.
too, who
yeah,
are
and we
struggling.
see, and so it's very hard. So I would say just take your time to feel the emotions. If you need to take a break, take a break.
That's right.
Do you keep in touch with any of the kiddos that you have had gone back or adopted out to someone else? Because it says actually once they were adopted, but I know that could mean reunification in your situations.
Right. I do talk to one, and I still get pictures of them all the time, but I do keep in touch with some others. This is really hard because I've had like parents, they don't want to keep in touch, and nothing to do with me because they want to just get out of the CPS system. Yeah. Or kids have entered back into care. I don't know where they're at. But I would say out of all my cases, I probably talk to 4. And that's like maybe once or twice a year I'll get a picture of them. But that is the hardest part. Me and Jay have a really hard time with this because sometimes we put a lot into, we give our whole selves to these children and we love them so much. And then imagine never seeing them again. And that happens to us a lot. And so it's very hard. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have to also take space too. So I've had a case where a child went home and I was very connected to them, but that child cried for me every day that it broke their own mom. And I had to step away because I knew that that baby didn't understand. They thought I was their mom and they were just visiting their mom. And so as hard as it is, I had to not talk to them anymore because and I could understand being a mom being heartbroken that your baby's not crying for you. And so it's really hard. I talked to some of them, but that is a lot of trauma that foster parents hold.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the hardest thing about being a foster parent is the unknown when the children leave. So out of the 16 children that have left our home, we only have communication with Mia. I can say her name because her mom, we see her, she lives here in Dallas. And all 15 other children, we have no contact. And it breaks my heart and I don't understand it. So in our situation, some of the children have returned home. I could see how the parents just kind of want to leave that part of their lives behind and not have anything to do with CPS or foster parents or anything. The part that I had to learn recently that Cyndi helped me through is that there was a chance that I could potentially talk. I had went to court over as foster parents. Sometimes you are called to testify, and I had to go and testify. And so, of course, I was trying to get the lawyers to say, "Hey, tell the adoptive family that Kyler and I would love to have a relationship." And I was having a really hard time, like very hard. I kept crying about it. I cried for it for about 2 weeks because I didn't understand how the adoptive family did not want Kyler and I in the children's life. If the children loved us, they asked for us, why they would not allow us to see them or speak to them. At the end of the day, it is the adoptive parents' decision if they want to communicate with the biological family or with previous foster parents. Unfortunately, that is not their prerogative with us. So we have not, and I told Cyndi so many times, I was like, I don't get it. I was very upset. And so she did help me to understand a different perspective. Right. And so I understand it now, but it definitely was very hard for me to understand that because I'm like,
it is heartbreaking. Like, I was a part of their life. Why can't I still be?
Yeah, I could provide some insight from the beginning of what happened or something, but I can also see how maybe it could be traumatic for the child. Thinking of child-centered is how I finally let go because I would not let it go. I kept thinking about and talking about it.
So I have a hard time because there's kids I don't get to talk to either. And you have to think that hopefully that parent's coming from a place of kindness and potentially them seeing us opens up a traumatic door that we don't. Foster care is traumatic no matter what. If they loved me, but they were still in care away from their parents. And they might not want to keep opening that up. And so, although it is very hard, it's just something that we signed up for, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. So all I do is I just hope and pray
That's right.
that all of the kids all children in the world, but specifically for the children that we have fostered, that they're safe, they're loved, they're heard, and it's just a great environment. And I did tell our oldest. I was like, if you ever find us on social media, send me a DM. Either it's years from now, I'll still remember you. Send me a DM, and we'll go visit you or rush to go see you. And so maybe one day we'll get a DM from one of them.
We think of them all often, guys.
I don't even know what this is, so you're going to have to explain what this is to the people who have never done foster care, but have you ever had to disrupt? We had our first disruption last week, and our heart is broken.
Disrupt?
Yeah, I have never.
I don't know what that
So
is.
like, so that means that
They're not fitting into your home.
So that is a way. So like
That's
a
kinda
child
what
could
I'm
be in your home, and you're feeling it's not a good match. Have you ever had to have them be sent to another foster home? Disrupt placement, basically. They'll move to another home, or they personally had to go somewhere because they, something happened. Like either, sometimes kids go up in levels too. So like they could need more help and have to go to a group home or something. So I personally have not had this. All of mine have either been, reunified or adopted.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely can. It did happen to us. I mean, we fostered 16, right? It has to be a good, safe environment for all. So depending on what you're licensed for, you might be licensed for like a, what is it called? Like, isn't there
Basic?
like,
Yeah,
for
it's
basic. And so depending on the child's need, they might be in a different category. And so they might have to go to different homes. And that definitely did happen to us. It's very unfortunate because every time a child is moved from home to home, it's very traumatic, and I think that builds even more the sense of I'm not wanted.
Yes.
And so it can be very traumatic, and so it is very unfortunate.
It's very hard to do, yeah. But
How long can a foster child stay in a home? Is there a limit?
no.
I think it depends on the state. Realistically,
Yeah,
I
I
know
was about
at
to say
least
that.
for us. That we experience is they give the parents a year. They give them a plan, and they say you got to finish this plan in 12 months. And during this time, you're going to have to do X, Y, Z, and we're going to meet every 3 months. We're going to do this. And the goal is reunification. Unfortunately, sometimes as you're going, they'll say, okay, we're 6 months into it. It looks like we're still on the path to reunification. Unfortunately, sometimes it says, oh, this is not being worked. We're not really getting the cooperation. They're not attending visits or whatever the case may be. And so now the goals might change to unrelated adoption. That can happen. Now, what can happen is sometimes the parents are working hard for their children to be reunified with them, and they need extension. So you can go into a meeting, and all of a sudden, like, well, Your Honor, we would like to give them another 6 more months, another 6. And extensions, what I've seen are they happen. They have to be for a valid reason. And children can be in foster care for 3, 4,
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
It just really depends.
That's here in Texas. I know in other states. Like
I have a
people-
friend
yeah.
in Florida,
Yeah.
and it's been like 5 years.
Yes.
Lots of years fostering, and so I think it just depends on the judge and the state.
Yeah. My longest case is 18 months, and then they went.
Mine was, I mean, technically a morinari. It took us almost 3 years to get towards that because there was a lot of things that happened, extensions and all.
And they
of
try
that.
to give them a chance because y'all know life is hard. Like securing jobs and cars and homes and being mentally stable and going to classes. It takes a lot of work. So if you're trying a little bit, they're going to give you time. But yeah, mine was 18 months because we had the extensions. There. But
That 12-month thing rips my heart out a little bit.
it's okay.
I remember the CPS worker telling me that they would give my sister a year to get my nephews back. And she did not do anything. Obviously, at that year mark, they moved towards adoption
Yeah.
and placement. And that year goes so fast. And when they're not doing anything and the caseworker has to tell you that they're not doing anything, that's really heartbreaking whenever you know that like that child deserves so much. And it really does affect more than just the mom and child or even the dad and child, because like shit, this has been years, and thinking about it makes me emotional because I'm just so sad to see it. Because I know how much my sister loves her kids. She really loves her kids. But I also know my nephews, and especially my niece, deserved better. And so there's a bit of anger in it, obviously, and frustration. But I know that the state puts those things in place because there are people like my sister who it became very clear she was not going to show up.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
And it's very hard, but
It's very
it
heartbreaking.
is what it is.
And living that is even harder. Like showing up to visits and nobody comes is really hard.
It is very hard when you go to a visit and the kids are very excited to see their parents and then they don't show up.
You have to stop saying, we're going to see your parents.
That's what we did is we would say, oh, we're just going to go out. But the kids are smart and they know where you're headed to. And so we would just get there once we knew it was going to happen, just to make sure, because it was very heartbreaking. And you could see the child's behaviors and feelings change because unfortunately the visit didn't happen for whatever the reason is. Could have been valid, but they would still
It's heartbreaking.
be upset at that.
It is something that is truly heartbreaking to keep going and no one to show up at all for them at all. Because in the foster care system, when your child is taken from you, you have the opportunity to call as many family, friends, uncles, cousins, neighbors to take care of your child. And nobody shows up.
Or they just flat out say no.
Or they say no. And we know not everybody can take on other children. We get it. We get it. But it is heartbreaking at the end of the day to think nobody wanted that child.
And you know what? I'll take this opportunity to say that I've had people question why would I call CPS and not take my nephews. I was 19.
No,
was a
that's no
child.
fault to you.
I was a single young girl with no home, no car. My dad sold my car for $100, turned off my cell phone. I had nothing to my name. I was not fit.
Nobody should ever use that against you.
Do I love them? 100,000%.
Were they taken care of?
Yes. And that's the thing, is that they were taken care of. And they were with a family friend who ran a group home. And so, and now Jacob is adopted by her.
Yeah.
And then Cade was obviously placed back with his dad,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. But I was not in the place to be able to do what Cyndi and Jai have done. I would have, but I was a child. I was just a kid myself. I just knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And I knew that my nephew was in danger.
Yeah.
And I had seen him in a couple dangerous positions. You have to understand that as a 19-year-old, especially, this is my sister. To make that phone call took a lot, because you want to have grace so badly. You want to have grace so badly because you love them, and you want to be like, no, there's no way you would harm your child. Like, you're my sister. You would not do that. There's just no way. But then whenever it's just right there in front of your face, you have to ultimately make the decision for the child. And as much as I fight with it in my head, because I know that my sister having her children removed really spiraled her pretty badly, and I think that is one of the main reasons why she did not come back to us, and I do blame myself for that a lot, but I have to think
They were babies, though.
they were babies.
Kids.
They were
You
innocent
absolutely
babies.
cannot.
And
do
I
that.
would make that decision over and over and over and over again, because now my nephew is 18 years old. He's alive, he's well, he's fed,
she's
he's
still
taken care of, and
addicted
she
to
is
drugs.
still addicted to drugs. And nothing, even losing her children, nothing has woken her up.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking, you know? People want to say, like, you're a part of the problem because you're a foster parent. I'm like, well, then you're not helping enough. Because
You just don't understand the situations.
Yeah.
You just don't understand that there are really people in this world that will put themselves before their kids and put them into harm's way.
And all of these parents love their kids.
Yes.
That is one thing, like, I would never doubt that they didn't love them, right? But a lot of them, one, don't have the resources, don't have someone to support them. And so that takes a really hit to their mental health. And unfortunately, their kids are affected by that. So,
Forever.
forever.
I'll tell you, my nephew is 18 years old, and he does not understand why.
No.
Like, how come she couldn't, just for us.
Yeah.
And so that's very difficult to navigate with him even, and to try to validate, like, your feelings are totally valid, and you're allowed to feel that way. And he even gets somewhat frustrated sometimes, because he will be like, don't answer her phone call. Don't answer that. Don't send her anything. And he's like very much like, he's in that angry teenage stage right now, where because she left rehab, he's mad. He's mad at her. And I understand that. But he's at the stage of like, no more.
Yeah.
And he flat out like was like, I don't want to.
Well, you're a really
be
good
exposed.
place for him to be, you know? You've been through your mom leaving you.
Well, I think having y'all as friends has honestly helped me more with that than even with my own mom. As much as I can validate his experience and his feelings because of my own mom and because of that, like, why couldn't you be different for me? But because of being friends with you guys and seeing like how y'all have to handle certain things, it makes it a little bit easier for me to talk him through things and to not put myself into his position, because as much as like my trauma hurts me, it's not his trauma.
Yeah.
And so I can't say like, oh, well, I know exactly what you feel.
Right.
Well, I know what I feel
This is
and how
different.
it happened to me, but I don't know what he feels. So I try to just validate him and say, you're right, honey, it does feel like this. And then just push love into him, because that's
right.
really all you can do for
That's all
a
you can
child
do.
that has a lack of parent, whether that's a dad or a mom that doesn't show up for them, or it's a foster situation or an adoption situation. There is a time where that child feels like, how come I wasn't wanted? Why was I not good enough? All these
No.
other families have their parents and they loved them enough just because they existed, that they stayed and they did good things for them. How come what was missing within me that I couldn't have that? And you have to almost fill that child's hole with all
Yeah.
of your love to try to keep them from
Being present, listening.
being in pain.
The feeling of being unwanted will probably follow most, or I would say all,
Forever.
foster children. And they will feel that. As adoptive parents, we'll have to kind of help the kids manage or help them cope and understand through conversations, therapy, whatever's needed to talk to the kids, because there will be a time where my children will have those questions, deeper questions, that we do educate them on what fostering is, adoption, to their skill level. Right now we have books. Eventually they will grow up and then we'll have to answer those tough questions of why they came into our home, what happened. The one thing I will say is, as an adoptive parent, I would advocate for you as an adoptive parent, for you to try to build a relationship, if you are able to, if it's the right moment, with the biological family, because child-centered disease, that would probably be the best option.
Child-centered.
What did I say?
Child-centered disease.
Lord Jesus. Why did I keep saying disease? Child-centered decision. I'm so sorry. Child-centered decision would be that the children will be curious to find out where they're from, who they come from,
Absolutely.
what led them. And so if us as adoptive parents can facilitate some of those conversations, that would be great. One of the questions I always get is like, what if it's not safe for them? The answer is very simple. Let's say that we're all going out to eat and there's someone in that room that is not safe for my children. I'm going to remove them from that situation. And let's say that someone made a mistake that got their children removed. Will you hold them against that mistake 10 years, 15 years later? Like, let's say they came back and said, I made a mistake. I want to do whatever I can to be in my child, in our child's life. Will you do that? Why not? Just because someone made a mistake years ago does not mean that they should be held to the fire for the rest of their lives. Does it have to be a good environment where...
Like if you hit that child, I don't know.
I'm sure that there are certain situations where it's different, right? We're talking about there's very severe cases. We're not talking about those.
Yeah.
We're talking about the ones where there could have been some other factors that are not child abuse
Yes.
to that extreme or anything like that, right? But let's say that it was resources, something, bad decisions, whatever, drugs, addiction, whatever. If they made a mistake and they're willing to learn from that and they come back later to say, hey, adoptive parent, I would love to see my child. I would love to build a relationship. In my opinion, it would be best for you to facilitate that as an adoptive parent, to build that relationship with them, because eventually when those kids get older and they can make their own decisions, they will go look for that. They will go search the truth that you were denying them, or that you didn't educate them, or that you hid from them. And I think that it would help your child along the way to kind of give them their story and let them know. And then when they're older, they can make the decisions. If they want to continue that relationship, continue it. And if they don't want to, they don't want to. But that's just my personal thing that I would say. So some of the questions that I get a lot for me, guys, is I do have 5 children and they want to know if they're siblings. First of all, the way that you ask me that question, I'm going to have 2 responses. If you ask me, are my children siblings? Yes. My children are adopted. They're Kyler and I's, and they're siblings. Now, if you ask me, are your children biologically related? Then the answer would be no. Right? Well, technically, right? 4 out of my 5 children are biologically related. right? The only one who is not biologically related is Talia. We adopted Talia a year before we adopted our sibling group. And people always ask that story. So initially, when they first came into care, we only had Amorinari. Grayson, unfortunately, was sent to another home. And it wasn't until the goal started changing to adoption that they asked, would you be open, if this goes to adoption, to adopting the 3 siblings? And I said yes. So then it was CPS's decision to have Grayson move to our home, so that way the siblings could be together. Because if they can't be with their biological family, they want them at least to be with siblings, which is their family. And so that's what ended up happening. And so Grayson came into our home. We had always seen him. We had always knew him because of the visits that we would go to CPS. But he just wasn't in our home. Then a couple of months later, Kingston was born, and he was placed into foster care. And they did ask us, since we were the current foster placement that had 3 of the siblings, if we wanted. And so we got Kingston straight from the hospital. And so that's why our case took so long, because there was just so many things that happened that's why it almost took 3 years for that to happen. But 4 of my 5 children are siblings, and Talia we adopted first, and then the other 4 came next, and that's how it is. But if you ask me, my children are siblings.
Right. How does the schooling work? Would kids need to transfer their school closest to you, or do they commute?
They transfer.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the same
That
you're in the
is
same
so
district.
fucking sad.
Yeah.
though.
It is.
do.
It's very hard
They've already
because they're
gone through
being ripped
so
from their
much.
family.
They're trying hard to stop doing that now.
Oh.
So Texas was taken over by Empower. Empower now runs the child care wellness system, and they're trying to keep kids in the county that they're being pulled from, but it is not always happening.
It's very hard because there's a shortage of foster parents.
Yes.
And so if the city, let's say that they're in or small town, let's go back where I used to live in Lubbock. If the parents are in Lubbock and there's no foster homes, they have to go outside of that region to find. And if there's nobody in that region,
you go.
they go to Dallas, they go to Houston
Yep.
to find them a home. The thing that's very unfortunate, guys, I am very soft to siblings because I have a sibling group of 4. Most of the time, large sibling groups are split up. There is not a lot of foster placements that can take 4 kids at once, that either have the space or the want or the desire
ability.
to bring in 4 children all at once.
Yes.
It's a lot, right? And so sometimes foster parents don't do it because of the capacity, or because they're not able to, or maybe they're not even licensed to. They don't have the space. So sometimes what happens is they call everyone around and like, okay, we have 4 homes. 1 of each kid is going to go to every home because that's what we have right now. There's nothing that we can do. And so that is very unfortunate that sometimes siblings are placed into multiple homes across the county.
And then they have to go to school there. So they
And
do
yes,
strip from their whole areas, which is so sad, but there's not enough foster families.
yeah.
So
Yeah, wow. What do you feel the best way would be to tell your child that they're adopted?
mine already know. I don't tell.
It's an open
it's
conversation.
nothing, literally.
They really, and you have to again know the age of the child. It's best to lead with the truth. In everything that we do in the life, it's best to lead with the truth. Heterosexual couples have the ability to lie to their adopted children and say, oh, you're mine, right? And then the kids grow up and they realize that their parents lied to them their whole year. You should not lie. Now, my children are very young. We have a lot of books that talk about fostering and what fostering is. We have a lot of books about adoption, different topics that bring up the conversation to their age comprehension right now. As they get older, we will build upon that. But my children understand what fostering is. They understand what adoption is because we still help out the community and we'll say, oh, this is going to children experiencing foster care. It's, they're not with their families right now, or they might be struggling. We're helping them out. So you can start very, very young and build the comprehension level as they get older.
Yeah.
So I would
It'll
say
never be
both.
a secret, though.
No, it should not be a secret.
So, of course, Fox is too, so he doesn't necessarily know it, but we are not tiptoeing around any situation. So, like, when we talk to Bear, Fox is there. He understands. And, he is adopted. We don't make it a big thing, but for us, definitely books. And then I'm very lucky that I'm friends with Jay and his children are adopted because my children do get to see that. And one day it's going to be a great conversation why do they have 5 kids? Well, they're adopted just like you were. And so surrounding myself with other people too who are adopted and yeah, but it's always going to be open conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier for that. Our children have seen, all of our kids have seen kids leave our home, right? So they've experienced foster care firsthand, so they understand it, and we just talk to them about it. Every child who's come into our home is part of our family, and so my kids still talk about the kids that have left, and like, oh, our cousin this, our cousin this, so they understand it. The last question that I'll answer for my kids is when Ari came into our home, he was 9 months. Amor was 18 months. Talia and Kingston were newborn, so days out of the hospital. And Grayson was 3. And so my children are now 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So they've been with us for quite some time. So I would say Grayson and Amor probably have a little bit more history with their biological family. Unfortunately, they don't ask as much because they're so young. It's so different when the children are younger that they really don't understand that. We do have open adoptions where we continue communication with the children's families, and that's what we've set out for. When one of the questions that we always get is, once you adopt, can the parents come and take the children? When you adopt a child, you're legally their parents.
Yeah,
or
that's
legally
your child then.
Child and responsibility, so that really can't happen.
That would be kidnapping.
Right. That really realistically can't happen. Now, every adoptive parent has the opportunity to do an open or closed adoption. Open basically means is that they are open to having communication with the biological family, whatever that means, whether by text, phone call, email, conversations, meeting up. Every family is different. Or adoptive families can say, I don't want to talk to anybody, any of the biological family, even any foster parents in the past, and we want to start fresh. My personal opinion, if you are able to, because there's a lot of circumstances, if you are able to have that relationship and it's healthy, why not? It's going to be like dating. It's going to be awkward in the beginning. It's going to be, there's a lot of trauma for everyone, for the biological parents, for the child, for you. There's a lot of emotions, tensions are high. But at the end of the day, if you can remove yourself, and it's a good thing, I would say do it. If it's able to, but sometimes there's a lot of circumstances. The other thing is, like Cyndi and I are the exact same way in this, is that our children's stories are our children's stories. We're not here on social media to tell you about what happened to my children, what led them to be into foster care. That's not none of your business, realistically. And I'm not going to be sharing other people's stories. I'm very sensitive to that, even for like gay people. Don't be outing people. Don't be sharing people's stories. Let people have their own stories. And so I and Cyndi, but she can say that, we share our perspective as foster parents and what we've gone through and advocated for children and all of that. But we're not here to tell you why my child is in this. That's none of your business. Right. And if you need to know that to care for me or my family, then you're just nosy. You just don't care. So yes, there's other ways that you can continue to advocate for children experiencing foster care, right? So even as my home has closed and Cyndi's will close in the future, you still can help out in other ways. Some people can't get down in the trenches. We talked about this in another episode. Everybody helps out differently. If you can't get down in the trenches of fostering, you can provide resources. You can donate. You can donate your time. There's a lot of things that you can do to continue to help out. I will say that it's really hard to come to the decision to close your own home. You do have to prioritize yourself. You do have kids very young age. I had that, and trust me, it's hard. But at one point you have to do that. But it's very hard to come to terms because there's so many children out there that don't have a stable, loving environment and that need that.
It's very hard.
And so it's a very hard decision, but you also have to make sure that what you have on your plate is taken care of.
And the kids in your home are taken care of. But I'm very excited.
I will say, my stepmom loved me unconditionally, and she always showed that. But I know for a fact, and I think that's why I love having you both at my table, that if I had not had my dad, I would have ended up in a foster home the same as my sister, both of them. And I know I would have been safe with either of you, and I love that about you both so much. So thanks for sharing today, guys, with all your foster care stuff. This is a heavy topic. It is sad because it is about children that are innocent and deserve better, and it sucks. But I love you both. I'm proud of you both. I think you're both angels on this earth. If anybody ever is mean to you, I will kill them.
Well, a little bit of horns, but still angels. I would just say, just make sure that you respect people's privacy. And I understand that you are very intrigued by people who foster and adopt. But you have to remember that it's their stories, and we're not here to share other stories, and you should be respectful of that. And there's ways that you can support and love people without having to know 100% details.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we should not be speaking other people's stories.
Especially when they're minors.
Yes.
So, yay.
Thank you guys for your questions today.
Yeah, and for watching and hanging out with us. You know where we'll be every other week. Yay.
Keep the giggles going.
And the love flowing.
And until next time.
Mom knows best.
Or at least she's trying her best.
Yeah.